I'm Elijah Pasco, and this is 8mm, a podcast where two film geeks and a radio nerd get together to answer, or fail to answer, 8 unique questions about film, with your two hosts, George Kent and Duncan Kastner. Today's episode will be their discussion with me about the 1981 neo-noir film Blowout, written and directed by Brian De Palma, starring Nancy Allen and John Travolta. It was a Saturday in June. I had nothing to do, and I decided to meet up with my friend George. I texted him asking if he wanted to hang out, and he said he would be going to Duncan's house to watch a movie. Little did I know that I was about to become a part of their cinematic review session. George picked me up from my house at 10 a.m. We drove over to Duncan's house, down to his basement, put the movie on, and watched it all the way through, making remarks and sarcastic comments all throughout the film. Once it was over, George pulled out his laptop, opened the audio recorder, and a document with a series of questions and guidelines. He pressed record and began the following intro.
Welcome back to another episode of Basement Boys. every time it's gonna be that.
Oh, every episode.
I'm welcome.
I'm too.
And this is our friend. We've got a guest on Basement Boys for the first time.
Okay.
Hello.
So, I was caught
His name is?
pretty off guard by the name Basement Boys. After getting over the name they had come up with, and they finished introducing me as a guest to the show, George then proceeded to talk about the first bullet point, titled Synopsis, on the document he had pulled up. It is recommended you watch the movie so you better understand the content of the conversation. There are spoilers ahead. You have been warned.
The movie we watched today is called Blowout,
Blowout.
starring John Travolta and Nancy Allen
And John Lithgow. Very entertaining.
Yeah. Well, here's the basic plot of this movie.
Right.
John Travolta is a sound guy,
Yes.
Foley artist.
but they say sound guy over and over and over again.
Right.
Well, sound man.
Guy who does sound.
Man who does sound. I think it's important to stress that it's a man because they mentioned it quite frequently.
That's right.
Sound man.
Sound man.
And he records a car crash,
Yes.
and he ends up thinking that, a governor dies in the car crash. He ends up thinking that someone shot the tire out to kill him.
And he saves someone from the car.
That's
she's all
Nancy
like,
Allen.
nothing happened.
Yeah,
Sally.
and it becomes a big
Ongoing.
conspiracy.
Yeah.
And then
We learned that John Travolta's character used to work for the police as an undercover recording guy who would would tape mics to people.
he would bug people. His only weakness was sweat. If someone sweated, they would die from his.
Well, that's why he
recording.
left. That's why he left the police,
can't believe
because
they
the
didn't-
last mission he was on.
I can't believe that
Some
didn't come
guy.
back. Right? They set that up. And they even
Yeah.
had a flashback. But
Yeah.
there wasn't any payoff.
There was no more sweat in the movie, unfortunately. It's right until the very end with the iconic line. It's a good scream.
Alright.
John Lithgow's the bad guy. He's killing people left and right. Turns out he's a bit of a psycho. Just likes to kill people.
Yeah.
You think he's got good motivations, but then it
People who
turns out-
look like his target.
Yeah. But he kind of knows that they're not his target too. He looks at their face for a while before he kills
Yeah,
them.
definitely.
And then in the end, he, spoilers, kills Sally.
Kills Sally.
And then John Travolta kills
John kills him.
Yeah. And then he uses
With
the
his own
scream of his dead girlfriend in a triple X movie.
Based on how we described the plot of the movie alone, you can tell how little we enjoyed it. The next talking point on the document was titled, One Word Description.
So Duncan, describe this movie in one word.
If I had to pick one word to describe this movie,
Mm-hmm.
it would be clustered.
Clustered.
Yes.
I like that. What would you say, Eli?
I would go with the hashtag all over the map.
You can't do a hashtag.
That's one word.
It's one word.
All over the map. Wait, say that for the 5 words one, dude. Hashtag is a cop-out. You gotta use one word.
All
What was-
over the
I didn't
All
see
over the
there was a
map.
5 word
Okay, well,
one next.
you're joining us for the ride here, my friend. So go along.
Pick one of
One
those
word.
A
five
hashtag is a
words.
cop-out. You can do a hashtag paragraph. Okay, I'll go next.
Well, I go with my first one, Frick.
Okay.
Frick. Yeah, that's a
Frick
good
is
one.
a solid one. I'm gonna go with sweat. This movie...
Somehow that accurately describes the movie.
Sweat. Okay, so we know your 5 words one.
Yeah.
All over to map.
Hashtag all over the map. What about you? Your 5 words?
John Travolta, not a pervert?
There we go.
Oh yeah, John Travolta also hits on Sally while she's sedated in the hospital.
That was a fun scene.
The roasting and badgering of this movie doesn't cease. Even during the movie, we made fun of it for its cheesy acting. And to be completely honest, it would be more difficult to find a moment in this movie not to make fun of. This leads to another segment where George asks a very important question for this movie.
What genre is this movie? It's just a thriller?
It's a cop movie. It's kind of a genre.
Kind of a cop. It's like a... Wait, what is it? It's kind of a noir, I guess, a little bit.
Kind of.
Shitty neo-noir.
Yeah, it's on the cusp.
It's on the edge.
It's getting
like,
there.
I just watched The Departed, which is all about rats and like wearing the mic and all of that.
Literally
And
about rats.
I can't compare the 2
Mm-hmm.
They're just so different because I felt like the sound thing was more of a gimmick than an actual component of the movie.
Yeah.
Because he uses it twice.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
didn't
it's-
feel...
It was more like a clever parlor trick than an actual like component of the movie itself.
Yeah, it was like barely like it was like a thin frame just to get to a kind of
Right.
straightforward.
And we don't need him to like always carry it and like be
Yeah.
a superhero just like running around solving crimes with sound
Yeah, but the main
equipment,
conflict
like,
had nothing to do with the sound. It was about,
protecting
getting a
the
tape to someone. Yeah.
Well, and the plot and like the deeper issue itself was the whole corruption thing about the governor and the politics.
Mhm.
Right.
But even that was flimsy.
Yep.
So
You get a little bit of an idea of what we're thinking about this movie.
one of the many
that's
problems of Blowout is that it doesn't know what its own tone is. At times it's comedic, other times it's intense, and while good movies can have a balance of both, this film never really finds it. The next segment title includes expletives, so if there are young children listening, this is just to let you know.
All right. The next one is called "Fuck You,"
Welcome to the segment called "Fuck You,"
which is arguing for arguing's sake.
Here's Duncan to further explain.
I'm gonna make an argument of the movie. It doesn't have to be like a good argument, but whatever it is, George has to take the opposite side.
You can join me on this.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can team up.
2 against 1.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go ahead and say. I'm just gonna say there are no good characters. I would argue that John Lithgow is the most interesting character in this movie.
Fuck you. That's where this segment got its name.
I would say that since John Travolta added barely anything to his character, and Sally was really makeup girl and end of list, I would say that John Lithgow, as just a serial killer-ish, just how he interacted with like tapping the phones and like going behind everyone's backs, that was more interesting than anything else in the movie.
You're wrong. You're dead wrong. And I'll tell you why. I'm not going to tell you that he's not more interesting than the main characters, but he's not the most interesting character in the movie, because you know who is? Manny Karp. Played by Dennis Franz.
The guy with the hat?
No, wait, is that the guy with the hat?
The guy-
Yeah, that's the film guy.
The guy gets knocked out with the
Wait, no,
bottle.
I'm talking about the guy who was interviewing those girls. the director of the director of Co-Ed Frenzy. He is a more... Okay, John Lithgow. Listen. John Lithgow is just a straightforward maniac in this movie. This guy had character. I don't know what his name is. But he was an interesting guy, man. He's trying to make a buck. He was trying to get by in his life. How is that not more interesting?
You're telling me that a 2-bit film director brought more of a character on screen than a psycho killer.
That's what I am legally obligated to be telling you. Yes, that is what I'm telling you. Eli, tap in.
Oh God. Fuck.
fuck. Both of you.
Oh, that's interesting. You take like a whole other.
Oh yeah, you have to fight both of. Yeah, you have to do both of us.
Okay, so I think, just looking contextually.
This discussion was heightened to even further ridiculous levels when I made the argument that Nancy Allen was the most interesting character because she was the beautiful damsel in distress, and as it was the 80s, she would be the reason a guy would go see this movie. After deciding to agree to disagree, we moved on to the next segment titled
Secret protagonist who is more interesting than the protagonist.
This might just be the same argument we just
Yeah,
had.
that's the same argument.
but now
Pretty
we can actually say
Right.
who we think.
I mean,
It's John Lithgow.
he's more interesting than the main character.
So what I thought was really interesting about him was like he was part of some like secret organization that was like trying to fix American politics to like help the world, and they had made some plan to shoot this guy's tire, but then they had like scrapped it, but then he went against it anyway.
He had ties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like he was clearly in a position of power, and like he was clearly like.
And he's like well trained because he had a freaking like watch strangled gadget.
Like he was part of an organization. Like this guy was established, but he was also a psycho murderer.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. It's like, well,
I mean, it was terrible, but it was like at least more interesting.
I don't know what his life story is though.
Imagine it from his perspective, where he's like doing this routine thing, and then some sound guy like just unravels his plan.
Yeah, unravels.
We tore this movie to shreds. Even while I was editing and listening back to the audio, there was so much dialogue of us just making fun of this movie. It is somewhat fitting that the next segment exists and is quite fitting and is almost seems that it was made for this movie. Just listen.
Ridiculizer. Tweak one aspect of the movie to make it ridiculous.
So you have to tweak just one little aspect of the movie and make it make the ridiculous. Yeah.
First. I think just turn the whole movie. I would make John Travolta's role in the movie be casting and not sound.
Okay.
So he has no recording, but he sees it, and he sees like the gunshot. He's like convinced, but he doesn't have any sound recording. He can only cast people.
Oh my god! I think he just made a better movie. He's like, no, seriously, because he sees it. He knows the guy's been shot, but he can't. He doesn't have a recording of it like he does in this movie, so he has to like
no proof.
He has to like make a film shoot and like fake the thing, but it's actually real. But he has to like cast the perfect girl and cast like the governor and like set up special effects and like shoot the film to make it look real, and then he has to like convince the world, even though it's true. I kind of want to see that movie more.
Yeah, we didn't make it ridiculous. We didn't make it ridiculous.
Well, maybe you can make it a little bit more ridiculous.
That's true. Okay. What if?
Because I was probably misunderstanding you pretty severely.
What if he's a sound recorder, but he wasn't recording? It was just turned off.
Damn it!
It's all in his head.
Wait, the whole movie's in his head. It's pretty
No,
good.
he's deaf. He's deaf.
So he just has to like look at the.
Wait, no, he goes deaf. He hears it, he records it, and then bam.
Oh right, the blowout.
Yeah, the blowout.
He goes deaf in the blowout, like
and he can't prove it.
Uh-huh. So the whole movie is him like learning sign language.
Right. All right, I've gone for too long. It's your turn. Tweak it.
Oh shoot. Okay. You have anything? We
Go
can edit all
ahead.
this stuff out.
If you have anything, go ahead.
Well, I gotta think.
Same. What if John Lithgow is actually just a psycho? Like, he's not working. People think he is. Like, John Travolta's character gets, like, this whole conspiracy thing, but John Lithgow's really just this psycho.
So he confronts him at the end, and he's like, "You're trying to, like...
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
trying to control the government," and he's just like...
He's, like, eating his fingers. Wait a minute.
That's really good.
You don't have a plan, do you?
So, yeah, all the things about, like, the government, that's just, like, completely out the window, and, like, you cut to John Travolta, it's like, oh my god, they're, like, infiltrating the...
You're ridiculous. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Alright, I've got one that's gonna trump. It's gonna blow both you guys out of the water.
Alright, let's hear it.
John Travolta can only wear costumes from Friday Night Lights. The whole movie, he has to try to convince people that, like, no, I had this tape. The government was assassinated, but he's wearing like a full body, like, sparkling disco suit the whole time.
I'm not crazy.
I used to be a cop, damn it.
Looking back, this movie was so terrible that it was difficult to make it even more ridiculous than it already was. And the sad part is that what we did to make it ridiculous made it an even better movie in our minds. In the last segment, and perhaps the most serious part of the discussion, we delved into some pretty interesting points.
All right, we've hit so what?
So what? This was the founding idea
Right.
of Basement Boys.
Is it in the charter?
Right. When the museum is built in our honor, there will be a hall dedicated to So What.
The origin of So What, yeah.
All right, so
It'll be chiseled on the door.
the important thing. What's the important thing about this?
We have to go through the movie and choose one good thing and one bad thing that are takeaways from this movie. Something like that we can remember from it.
I'm gonna say the good thing is that there wasn't a happy ending. Because, 80s movies, they're all about, fist pump. And, driving, my dad found out I stole his car, right? But in this movie, right, there is a love interest who gets killed, and, right, the main character is too late to save her. And I thought that added weight to an otherwise sort of cheesy ending.
Yeah.
I would say the bad thing is everything else. I picked this movie because I heard it was about this guy on a movie set who uses the job he had to sort of discover this whole conspiracy, but they didn't use that. They didn't use the whole sound thing ever again. Right? I was expecting him to continue the movie shoot, but still work on his own thing on the side and have the two somehow meet.
Right. It was completely disconnected though.
Yeah. It was almost the movie, the co-ed frenzy thing was almost a distraction. It was more of a distraction than it was an actual.
And we want co-ed frenzy.
but you mentioned the unhappy ending, and it made me think, maybe this is about as noir as the 80s can get. I mean, that's probably wrong. Because, when did Blade Runner come out? There's definitely some other good noirs, but as far as
bad,
as far as bad 80s movies go, as far as when you think of the 80s, you think of a certain kind of movie.
Yeah.
Maybe this is about as noir as that mainstream movie can get.
Because it was really about the name. John Travolta, Sally Allen, John Lithgow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, also, I don't know. The good thing, I don't know. I liked the idea, the sound. While it didn't, I guess my good and bad kind of go together. The good thing, I liked the idea, but it just wasn't extrapolated to the extent. It wasn't explored to the extent that it could have.
It was why was he so bad? Besides that one thing.
Yeah.
Right. There was no payoff.
Right.
It could have been. It was a clever idea to begin with. He recorded the track. All this. He has the sound, but he doesn't have the pictures to go with it so that it can match. But it just kind of was meh. They didn't go as far as they could have. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with the bad thing because I'm having trouble thinking of a good thing. And I think that this goes to detective movies in general, but it's it didn't feel like we were discovering things along with them. It felt like they just were just kind of going through John Travolta's goal the entire time was just to get this tape to someone, and that never really progressed beyond that. There were discoveries, kind of figured out the whole picture, but it didn't feel cohesive. It didn't feel like John Travolta was working for any of it, or Nancy Allen either. It was an anti-detective movie in that they just kind of flailed around and all the answers came to them.
Right. The story was happening to them.
Yeah.
Well, even there weren't that many. They kind of established a story. We got the sense that there's government corruption. This guy tried to kill the governor, but something went wrong, and that was about it. It wasn't there's this, and then it was a regular detective story. You find out more and more information, and the story kind of builds. But we kind of got this throw up of information, a mediocre story, and then nothing else really happened.
Absolutely. In a good noir, he figures out the conspiracy and he knows it all, but then it doesn't matter because the system's just too.
Well, it builds. It's one piece of information that kind of reveals something, but not the entire thing. So there's still this mystery, but there was no mystery.
Yeah, but talking from I totally agree with you as from the detective perspective, but also from a noir perspective, as far as the ending goes, This is like it's like the anti-Chinatown ending where like
Yeah.
we're like, oh yeah, we technically won, but no, we lost. But it was like, I'm gonna cut that part out. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. It just felt like they
but I know
didn't.
what you mean. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of incentive either, because like
Somehow it didn't feel like it felt like a victory, even though it was a tragedy,
Right.
which just should not be the feeling at the end of this movie.
right.
It should be like, oh man, we can't beat the system, I guess.
Well, I mean, like, if you're going for the type of movie that it is, they like the kind of cheesy mainstream 80s movie, it just felt like completely disjointed from the tone they were setting as they were going through the movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. It tried to reconcile the two and it didn't work at all.
Yeah.
But I do have a good thing now. It's the screams. I thought that was really funny.
Okay,
so they're
yeah.
trying to shoot like the XXX movie and the girl's scream is like ah. It's supposed to be like the class is like
Right. There was one moment of comedy, and it's everything with the scream.
yeah.
And then in the end,
Oh
so
god.
not to ruin your good point, but
oh god.
the
Wait,
way
you're
they
right.
resolved that is using the real scream from his dead girlfriend.
So the whole time they're trying to they're like auditioning girls,
Right.
Which was funny. Like
Yeah.
it's like he walks in the room and he's like, wait, Jack, before you run out, just listen to these girls scream, and they all scream, and he's like, find the girls.
and he's just like, keep looking.
Yeah, and oh my god,
Like, if there were more of those moments, or if there were either more of those moments to give it kind of that more mainstream tone, mainstream 80s tone, or if they just cut it out completely,
Yeah.
then you'd have that more cohesive
Right.
feel to a movie.
At
But
least give us a break
Yeah.
from like the heavy like, oh, we gotta catch this guy.
because at the end, so yeah, you already said it, but the girlfriend's bugged, and then she dies, but he's got the recording of her death, and her scream is really good.
so they use it.
So he puts it in the movie.
It shouldn't have even like came to him.
Like-
oh,
Even that
What would
crossed his
cross his
mind. Like,
mind?
why would he do that? and it shows him like sitting in the
scream.
it shows him sitting in the screening room, just like it's a good scream, it's a good scream. And he's like covered in sweat and stuff, and it looks like he just, like,
PTSD.
hates his life. It's like, why'd you put yourself in this situation?
you can't
As
watch
both
this
George
movie
and
and
Duncan said, this film does a lot of things wrong. Overall, this movie is absolutely terrible. But the premise is an interesting one, and it's disappointing that the movie fails due to bad storytelling, both from an acting and writing standpoint. And it's not just this movie. Plenty of other films have the same problem of having a brilliant premise but falling short when it comes to the story, acting, and cinematography, which are all essential components to good movies.
That's what's making
Part.
Wrapping it up. This is not primarily a review show, but we are going to give you each 2 scores. Just one is a score that we think this movie actually critically deserves, and the other is how much we like the movie on a scale of 1 to 10 each. I'm going to give this movie. I always go down with movies. I start at like a 10 with most movies, and then it like slowly drops. You know, like I don't feel like I started at 0, and like the movie has to earn it. Like I kind of started at 10. I was ready to give this movie a 7.
Wow, it's very generous.
Wow, that is
So-
generous.
But it dropped. And I just,
2A.
I mean, it's a functional movie. The premise is okay. I laughed a couple times. It was like, critically, it's a 5.
Okay.
Enjoyment wise, it's a 4. That's what I'm gonna put.
Okay.
Like the movie was technically functional. It technically worked. It was just so rote
Yeah.
that it wasn't fun to watch. That's what I'm gonna say.
I think critically, yeah, I think 8. As far as 80s movies go, I mean, it's better than some 80s movies I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also not, as good as some other 80s. It's like some really good 80s movies. So, critically, yeah, maybe a 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as much as I enjoyed it, 5.5 maybe.
Yeah. I would say on a technical level, this movie's a 4. Just because it just looked kind of crummy.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone had like a fuzzy edge around them, and sometimes the light was too bright, and like when it was dark, it was like too dark.
Oh, and the split screen too.
Yeah, there's some weird
Oh,
split
yeah.
screen.
The editing. That's just. I didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
I
really
would give
obvious.
it a 4 on a critical level. Enjoyment, 4. I'd say.
You're even there, okay.
Because like,
I gotta love the music too.
music was
Very 80s.
Synth.
Yeah.
Synthesizer.
My favorite part of this movie was when he's like trying to recreate it, and he's like moving the pencil like to where he put
Yeah,
it.
that was
Right,
cool. That was really
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
And then it went downhill.
Yeah.
I thought the whole movie was going to be like that.
Yeah.
And that would have been so good.
It would have been. Yeah, it would have been so much more interesting to do that.
If they just added more components of that.
Yeah, they just dumped that
All
premise
in
right
once.
away and went straight to just like a straight up detective movie.
Or just action thriller kind of stuff.
I keep seeing this on like Twitter and stuff, and it's so true. It's like I want every movie to be good. I really want every movie to be good. It just makes me sad when movies are bad, and this movie had a chance.
This movie made you sad.
It made me sad. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's.
And it was towards the end of the conversation that Duncan made a very important point.
We need a follow-up.
Yeah.
We need bad movies turned into good movies.
Yeah.
Because the concept is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, bad movies with potential.
As our conversation came to a close, George and Duncan thanked me for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on,
Thanks for
Eli.
joining us.
Eli will be back. You'll hear his voice again.
It was a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
A couple weeks later, I asked George for the audio so I could edit it and mess around with it. From there, we started our own YouTube channel and our own Twitter account. This is where the podcast began. One Saturday morning, 3 film geeks, and the movie Blowout. Thanks for listening. The music used in this episode of 8mm is Sram and Ret Pudge by Reed Karras, Dances and Dames by Kevin MacLeod, Hungaria by Lakshti Swing, Little Lily Swing by Tritachyon, and Use a Viper by the _Orchestra. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of 8mm.